speech in Antarctica. Let me see if there's any vocab. I'll talk about the Antarctica Treaty or the Antarctic Treaty. A couple names likely of countries. I will talk about the Falklands War or Falklands Island. I'm sure you've heard of it. Mm, yeah, that's a good start. It'll be more of a storytelling. All right. Hello, it's 2021. If you felt like last year was like an adventure drama blockbuster, well, this year it looks like we're already seeing the trailer for a promising sequel. You have pharmaceutical companies rolling out vaccines, three new variants on the loose, and of course, a new president of the United States. So there does seem to be hope at the end of the tunnel. By the way, I don't know which end of the political spectrum you sit in, but if you had called the Black Lives Matter events riots, I hope that you did not call the recent Capitol Hill attacks protests. Okay, that was just my little political call out. Anyway, here in Canada, we are very much in the middle of winter. And let me just time myself. And it looks like we'll just have to collectively hunker down and prepare for a few more months of lockdowns. So, in the spirit of winter, I'd like to talk about Antarctica. Ilana spoke about the Arctic, so now let's round it off and talk about the other cold desert. You've all heard of the idea of spirit animals, I gather. Say that you're someone who's proud and magnificent, you may think that your spirit animal is a lion. Or if you're very hardworking and conscientious, then you may be a beaver. Who knows? If countries could be spirit territories, I think Antarctica would be one of my spirit locations. I hope you're following me. Why is that? Well, first of all, Antarctica is truly a free spirit. Um, while not exactly the anarchist's dream come true, Antarctica is a territory that has no government. It has no founding people in the traditional sense of the term, and Antarctica is not a nation state. There's basically no concept of a Antarctic nationality or citizenship or a formal claim to the land of any sort. And this is thanks to the Antarctic Treaty signed in Washington on December 1st, 1959, amidst the Cold War. It became the world's first successful arms treaty agreement, meaning that there can be no military presence on the territory. Now, the original 12 signatory countries were the ones who were active on the territory at the time. This includes Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Chile, France, Japan, New Zealand, Norway, South Africa, the Soviet Union, and the UK at the time. Eventually, the US and China joined, and today it includes over 50 countries to this treaty. It was a space to where science was meant to flourish, and it enforced a notion that regardless of which country is doing scientific research on the continent, any country's endeavors will not be a basis for any kind of sovereignty over Antarctica. And you had to inform other countries if you are to do research, and it was just going to be shared. So, as you can imagine, Antarctica is currently an unclaimed territory, not because countries haven't tried. As we know, countries, what they do is they try to conquer or they are conquered. So Antarctica has a long history of people trying to lay claim to it, but because of a combination of weather and just it being in the center of the South Pole, the geography, There was not any formal territory claim until 1908, when the British formally laid claim to the territory. So they laid claim to the Falklands, various islands southwards, and other parts of the continent. I think I'll take a break here and we'll come back for the rest of the story.
As I mentioned, despite early landings and flag waving, the first formal territory claim was done by Britain in 1908. In fact, one of the most infamous disputes on the territory arose between the UK and Argentina. I know this is a sour point for any Argentinian friends who may be listening, so for this I apologize in advance. But unfortunately, the UK eventually won in this story. So what happened is when the UK claimed sovereignty over the Falkland Islands, in Spanish, Islas Malvinas, it's part of, as you know, the Falklands are part of the Antarctica archipelago. And they basically claim that they've been there continuously since 1833. But Argentina has always disputed this claim. They said that they've been controlling the islands and they had a presence there before 1833. So this dispute escalated in 1982 when Argentina invaded the islands, which then led to the Falklands War. According to Wikipedia, contemporary Falkland Islanders overwhelmingly prefer to be British. So as I told you before, the British won that war, but I think it's something that Argentina is still quite bitter about. After that, well, France, New Zealand, Australia, and other powers then claimed other parts of the island, which eventually accumulated in the said Antarctica Treaty. The second reason why Antarctica is close to my land is because it just seems to be a faraway fantasy land that's hard to access and sort of the last frontier of mankind. It seems to be a rare, precious, and delicate jewel. As I mentioned, it is Earth's only continent without a native human population. 99% of the continent is covered by ice. If you think Canada's cold, well, in Antarctica, the average annual temperature ranges from -10 on the coast to -60 at the highest parts of the interior. That's average temperature. Near the coast, the temperature can exceed 10 degrees Celsius in the summer, if you're lucky, and fall below -40 in the winter. In the inland, it goes only to -30 degrees Celsius in summer, and it can go all the way to -80 degrees Celsius in winter. The most abundant and best known animals are on the southern part. There are penguins, whales, seals, albatross, I think that's how you say it, and other seabirds, as well as a range of invertebrates in the sea, such as krill. So it's a beautiful land, but it's a land that is constantly being threatened to disappear. As you know, there are over 50 countries who signed the treaty, but with new players coming in, and especially superpowers such as the US or China, they actually have a vested interest in the land. Not only is it a place for resource exploration, which is always interesting for countries, it's also a place of strategic importance. We know from, for example, Constantinople fell eventually because the Ottomans were able to take it from Constantine, the king at the time, because everyone just wanted to be the king of Constantinople, which of course we know became Istanbul later on. So it's not as quite as strategic as Constantinople in the Middle East, but as the world population grows and there's competition for resources, it's going to be harder and harder to to lay claim to these really strategic lands. Furthermore, there's the threat of climate change. The sea ice is melting much faster in Antarctica than anywhere else in the world. And for this reason, before anyone could get a piece of that pie, maybe Antarctica will disappear altogether. The reason for this climate change threat is also because of increased tourism. There's, of course, designated areas where tourists can go visit, usually from cruise ships and so on. But there's increasingly private chartered tours, private yachts, and I heard that the Chinese government has some exclusive clubs set up in Antarctica for some of their high net worth clients to be able to visit some of the most exclusive places on Earth. In 23 years, this treaty will expire, and we don't know if we may face some kind of big gold rush, but in this case, it will be a winter snow rush to Antarctica. I remember one of my first assignments was actually in Yellowknife here in Canada. I remember hiking under the midnight sun. And one time I went on a hike and I wore just my regular Toronto gloves. And I remember 10 minutes into the hike, I start feeling my fingers just freeze up. My eyelashes were turned into mini icicles, and the liquids in my nose also froze up. And that was the first time in my life where I felt the existential threat. I felt that if I did not find shelter in the next 10 minutes, I would literally turn and. So this is not a kind of threat that you feel in Toronto or anywhere else. But there was also, oh, sorry, my internet is unstable. But there was also beauty in it. I remember looking at the trees and their bark was just so strong. And these living species had to withstand such frigid winters in order to just grow a branch. So I have huge admiration for that. And I feel the same for Antarctica. It's a vast expanse of land, relentless, unyielding, and I hope that it won't yield so easily to the greed of man. I hope that humanity will be able to see its beauty, work together, and preserve this last natural frontier of planet Earth. Thank you.